stood there small amongst the flames, village gone in sorrow's name. Tears reflected in the sky, shattered dreams and whispers die. Smoke and ashes fill the air, memories lost in deep despair. She clutches dolls of vanished past in chaos where the shadows cast. Embers of yesterday burn the...
Damn it. You have to be kidding me.
The captain grumbled to himself, staring down at the floor as he gripped into the handrails of his captain's chair.
Maybe I can use this. If that bitch took control of that ship, so could I, right? If I take her out, maybe I could become the captain, but how the hell do I do it?
He said as he looked up for a moment.
I'm going to need you guys to...
At which point, he suddenly fell silent. Now, looking up at the members of the bridge crew, all of whom were giving him very intense expressions, as he saw a series of firearms being pointed in his direction, one after another raised, their gun pointing it at him.
You can't be fucking serious. You're just turning me over to that bitch, is that right?
He said, staring at the members of the bridge crew.
Sorry, Captain. No honor amongst thieves. She gets you. We all get to live.
Well, son of a bitch. Shove a laser pistol in my ass and blow me down. Bunch of fucking mutineers.
Don't give us that crap, Captain. If it was your ass on the line and you had to sell any one of us out to save it, you know damn well you'd be doing exactly what we're doing.
One of the men replied, as he began to approach, taking a few steps towards the captain.
Don't make this difficult on us, Captain. Believe me, this isn't the choice that we would prefer. You've been a good captain. Well, good to us. I'd prefer not to have to kneecap you before we take you there. I do respect you after all, so this would be a lot easier if you just hop out of the chair, slowly turn around and make your way towards the door. With your hands up, of course, don't reach for any of your weapons. And remember, Captain, we're not the only ones on this crew, so you're not going to be able to just fight your way out of this. Even if you'd killed everybody in this room, there's still every other member of the crew who wants to save their own ass. And even if you took all of them out, the only thing you'd be left with is the end of the 5-minute timer. When the Kraken eats the ship and everything in it goes bye-bye, including you. When you really think about it, there aren't really any options. Honestly, I'd say your best option of survival is to actually do what she says. Maybe she'll get stupid, give you a chance. But if you refuse her demands, well, it's just curtains for you and everyone else. Honestly, I really hope that's not the case, and that when all this is said and done, you can just understand that this was all part of the pirates' code. Rule number 1, no one's more important than you.
Yeah, fuck the lot of you.
The captain replied, slowly standing from the chair and putting his hands in the air.
If I do make it out of this, you fuckers are getting a serious fucking pay cut.
He did as they said, turning around from the chair and slowly making his way to the door. At which point, without any further complications, he allowed them to escort him to the docking bay that had been designated for their meeting. As they opened the door to the docking bay, and the captain walked through it, guns pointed at him from the rear. They saw that the room was very much not how they left it. There was some sort of silver metallic-looking liquid floating everywhere. It covered the walls. All of the escape pods loaded in the docking bay looked like they were torn to pieces. What little bit was left of them seemed to be dissolving away, being eaten by the silver liquid. At the end of the docking bay, where they would normally see the energy field that leads out into space, or the docking door, a large rusted piece of metal that closed shut tightly to keep the space out in space. They now saw a shimmering silver metallic wall that seemed to undulate like some sort of liquid, rippling back and forth.
What the fuck?
The captain said as he entered the docking bay. As he did, he began to feel a tingling sensation, the kind one might feel if they fell asleep on their arm, except it was all over his body. He started looking around at his arms and legs, wondering what it was. As he did, at first, he saw nothing. But then, after a few moments, he began to see something floating away from him. It almost looked like dust, a fine layer of dust that seemed to float away, as if it were carried by a breeze that weren't there. Very hard to see. Immediately after the dust flowed away, it began to coalesce, gather together, float towards the wall and the distance, sifting into its silvery liquid-looking form. The other crew members on the other side at the door looked on in awe and astonishment, before suddenly, the floating orbs of liquids in the room began to rapidly move, large amounts of them clustering on the walls around the door and beginning to seal it shut. The other crew members who were still pointing in their guns quickly began to back away, not wanting to get caught up in whatever this was, because the silvery liquid sealed the door shut. And suddenly, a voice began to ring out from the communication system on board the ship.
Well, congratulations, guys. Look like you held up your end of the bargain. So, as promised, all of the rest of you get to live. I promise I'll keep you alive and follow up with my end of the bargain. At least one of us has to have some honor, but I never promised comfort. So, don't think that I'm supposed to give you cushy rooms. Until you get where you're going, consider a pot to piss in, food to eat, and air to breathe, a luxury that I don't really have to provide. Got it? You're lucky that you get it at all. So, I don't want to see any temper tantrums from anybody who wants a nice cozy bed. Privacy all to themselves. Any of that shit and I'm going to have to kick your ass out into space. And as for you, Captain Vermin, I'm going to need you to take all of your weaponry and slowly and carefully place it into one of the silver floating orbs that you see there in the docking bay. Don't worry about what happens to it afterwards. And don't try and hold back. We know exactly what you're carrying. Any funny business and things are going to get, well, painful.
The captain scowled a bit before giving in and beginning to disarm, placing his weaponry into a floating metallic liquid sphere there in the docking bay. One weapon after another, he gingerly placed against the orb, watching it sink away into the interior. He noted that, after he pressed it in just a small amount, that the sphere would begin pulling at it rapidly, and it required little more effort from him, almost as if they were eating it. After all of his weaponry had been placed away into the sphere, including a plasma pistol, a military knife, a few clips of ammunition, and 3 energy grenades that he carried around. For a moment, he stopped placing things into the sphere, waiting for something to happen or change. But the only thing that seemed to change was that the sphere suddenly seemed to start to emote, act as if it had a will of its own, suddenly moving towards him, darting rapidly, and then stopping and backing away just to repeat the process, as if it were calling for something, anxious, demanding almost. It was at that point that the captain remembered that he had a few hidden blades on him. He had completely forgotten about them in all of the events that were transpiring. They apparently did know all of the weapons that he was carrying, even if he himself had forgotten about them. So, just like before, he gingerly began to remove the small hidden blades, placing them into the sphere and watching them sink away. After he placed the last one in, the sphere seemed to back away, floating upwards towards the ceiling and far out of reach.
Good. I'm glad to see you're cooperating.
He heard Mika say that over the loudspeakers.
Even if you are being a little hesitant. But I expected as much. But don't you worry. I'll be down in a second.
What?
He said, looking around.
How the hell is she supposed to get down here?
He said, looking about the cargo bay. Suddenly, he saw a whirling in the metallic liquid that formed the silvery wall in the docking bay. As the liquid began to swirl and move, he saw a hole open up, like a tunnel widening itself, ever so gently, before finally forming into a solid, spherical, tunnel-like passage. In a short few moments after this passageway opened up, Mika slid out of it, as if she was on a child's slide, simply popping out and landing to the floor gently. Wow, that was more fun than I thought it'd be, she said, as she stood to her feet, dusting off her battered clothing beginning to stretch a bit, as she started tying her long white hair into a tight bun on the top of her head, brushing small amounts of her blood off of her pink skin, as she gave Captain Vermin an intense expression and a bright smile. As well as
Captain, it's nice to see you so soon after my departure, but I think it's about time that we have put this little situation to bed.